one of our old friends again, Tim Graham from Hotspot and many other company behind it. One of the best property educator in Australia and also have many other service behind it. I'll let Tim do the talks. So Tim, welcome.
Thank you so much. Very kind of you.
Thank you. So if you don't mind, share with us your journey, what bring you into the property investment game and what bring you to Hotspotting and create all the rest of service and product for the investor.
Yeah, sure. Well, I actually had 12 years in hospitality straight out of school. So I had pubs and cafes for many years, grew up in country Victoria. And after 12 years in hospitality and not having any weekends whatsoever, I thought there's got to be something more to life. So I thought,
you sure probably got weekend?
Well, this is the thing. I didn't work in normal traditional real estate, so I did have my weekends free at the time. But I applied for a job in the Herald Sun. This is obviously before Seek was around and things like that, for what they called an in-home consultant role for an investment firm on St Kilda Road. And I had no idea what it was about, to be honest. I just want to get out of hospitality. So I applied for this job, went down and did an interview down there. And I really was inspired by what they were teaching people, how to pay off mortgages in record time, how to grow property portfolios. And I always had an interest in real estate, but I didn't realise I wanted to work in real estate, so to speak. And then I became a bit of a sponge. I went and did my mortgage broking diploma, went and did my real estate licence. And I've always been a bit of a sponge and want to be valuable to any business I worked in. So I wanted to learn as much as I could about the industry. And then very quickly, through working at that company, I became their national sales manager. And then after 5 years, went and took a role with a prop tech business going overseas, where we set up offices in Asia, Middle East, the US, London, all over the place. And I was lucky enough to work in real estate in about 14 different countries. So bringing all of that back to Australia when I moved back here just before COVID, I'd always been using hotspotting reports with Terry Ryder.
Yeah.
And I was using those as insights to build my own portfolio, but also to help other customers grow their portfolio. And I said to Terry many years ago, if you ever want to hang up the boots, or if you're ever looking for someone to come and join you, let me know. And anyway, he tapped me on the shoulder in the start of 2022, and then I joined him there. So that's how we got here. And obviously, since joining the team there, we've obviously got the hotspotting business, which is a real estate analytics business, educating people, and then we also have a buyer's advocacy business as well to help people who may not have the skills, expertise, or time to actually buy in the areas we're recommending.
Yeah, so Tim, being around the property market, different side of the industry, then you make your own choice. Choose to help the investor from the buyer's advocacy side, and also emphasize the research and education.
Yeah.
So what inspired me or confused me sometimes as well, there are so many good tools and courses out there. Why the investors still fail?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think well, firstly you got to pick the right research, and a lot of real estate analysts or economists, they often speak about everything that's happened in the past, but there's not much that's forward-looking. Nothing to sort of say, what's going to happen in these locations in the future. And I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is they look at that historical data and they say, I would never buy there because it's never grown. And I say, well, the past doesn't predict the future. We're looking for changes at hotspotting. So that could be not just in real estate data, but population growth, infrastructure projects and things. And if you went on the premise that you wouldn't buy anywhere that's never grown in the past, you'd miss out on massive opportunities. And some great examples of that are, the Sunshine Coast market, that it was a very poor performer since, well before 2018, and then one of the best markets. And then you go a couple of years down the track and you've got Perth, which, historically was a really bad market for, 10, 15 years. And then we've seen this huge boom. So I think the key to that is making sure that you're choosing the right research to back your investment decisions on.
So you can't just buy a property market that has already grown, and then you're getting that maybe too late. But if you're looking at some of the suburbs hasn't been growing, you need the right research to back your own decision. Say, okay, you believe the property price in these suburbs is upcoming because not enough rental, properties, upcoming projects, people move in, the evidence around this suburb perhaps to back your decision. It's always the same game.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I think, as I said, we don't just rely on real estate data, and I think that's what sets us apart from so many other data suppliers, because we're also looking at demographic data, the infrastructure projects coming to town, population, crime and all that sort of stuff comes into it a little bit, but we're really looking at all of that as a whole, and then we're creating insights, whereas most places just say, here's what's previously happened.
Yeah. So speaking about buyer's advocacy, what's the market price? I heard different market price, 8,000, 15,000, 20 or more. What justified that service?
It's a really good question. Look, it's funny. I first started doing buyer's advocacy work when I moved back from America, and in America, on every transaction there was a listing agent, somebody's looking after the vendor, and then there's also a buyer's agent. And that wasn't really the done thing here in Victoria, in Australia for many years. But now it's like every second transaction's got a buyer's agent on there. And the challenge with that is we've got such a big boom in this industry of people coming out and saying, I'm a buyer's agent, but they lack the practical experience. They've actually probably not even invested themselves, but yet they're going out there charging big fees to recommend somebody to buy a property that they haven't got the skills or the years in the game to actually confidently say this is going to be a good piece of real estate. And the challenge that I see as a buyer's agent myself is that it's a really tough industry right now, because my job as a buyer's agent is to find you value. So as my client, I want to get you the best price possible. And quite often I'm losing transactions because another buyer's agent who's got less experience is telling their buyer, well, just spend a bit more. And they're overpaying. So that's the challenge that we have in the market right now, is that there's a lack of expertise in a lot of the buyer's agents out there.
So what's the qualification difference between a GP, a doctor, and a buyer's agent?
Oh God, that's a big difference, probably about 10 years difference. But I mean, look, it's a skill set like any. At the end of the day, the more time and effort that you put into it, the better you're going to be at it. But if I was looking for a buyer's agent as a consumer today, I'd want to see a good track record. I want to know, like a good accountant, you want to know a bit about them and how long they've been in the game.
Yeah.
But secondly, does this person who's giving me advice, do they actually buy into what they're preaching? Are they investing themselves? Are they buying in the same areas they're recommending? I think all of that's really important.
So I was once mentored by Terry Ryder, and I asked him, hey, before I pay this big mentorship fee, would you mind sending me your report 5 years ago so I can have a look? And then more than half of the suburbs he selected already have substantial capital growth. That's what convinced me to sign up.
We call that the report card. So every year we go back and we look at our previous predictions. And 2024 we made our national top 10 selection, which is the 10 LGAs or local government areas around Australia that we expected to have the best growth. The national market averaged 5%. 9 out of 10 of our selections range from 13% to 29% growth. And our worst performer was 11, which still doubled the market.
So research is quite important, and the right research as well. So Tim, speaking about selling the reports, selling the content courses, I realize many investors, they just buy the content, but they don't take action. Do you come across any investors or like students like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can be overwhelmed. So, at the end of the day, they're getting all this information, but they're overwhelmed. And, for a lot of people that want to go out there and do this themselves, and they're buying all this research, they're doing the property investment courses, and they're still struggling to pull the trigger, I'd say to them, look, I think the reason that you're doing this, maybe you're interested in being able to do this yourself, but a lot of people are trying to avoid that buyer's advocacy fee. And Terry Ryder, you just talked about, he's got 40 years in the game, but every time he goes and buys an investment property, he uses a buyer's agent. And there's a reason for that. He wants, one, it's very time consuming to do. Two, you want to, touch on and tap into the relationships the buyer's agent's got. And then the third one is that he wants a second set of eyes on the purchase. So for anybody who's going out there and doing all the research, I think that's amazing. But if you're struggling to pull the trigger, enlist the services of a professional, because that fee that you're worried about paying, you'll probably save that in the first year. And more importantly, that fee, whether it's the 8,000 or 25,000 that some are charging now, that fee that you spend today could save you that amount of money in mistakes in the future.
What's the common mistake you see from investor they got from the bad advice or the bad buyer's agent or other channel agents? And even they read the reports, or even they've done some courses?
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, the first and most obvious one is that people often want to buy in their backyard. So they might go and enlist the services of a local buyer's agent who specifically focuses on one area. And the challenge with that is they're going to show you the best property in that area. Whereas right now, I'm personally not a big fan of Victoria's market at the moment because of, stamp duty is much higher, land tax is much higher, yields are very low. So if I'm enlisting somebody who's only got to focus on Victoria, I'm missing out on the rest of the nation. So I think one of the first things you should do if you were looking at it from an investment perspective is approach a buyer's agent who's got a national scope.
So there's so many TikTok influencer, YouTube, or maybe including myself, there's so many of that is upcoming as well, and they all looks like a guru speaking about helping this client buy 10 property in 5 years. You mentioned about look at the track record. Can you expand a little bit more how a investor can distinguish a good buyer's agent versus a not so good one?
Yeah, I think the first one is if it looks too good to be true, it often is. Okay, so they're driving around in the Lamborghinis and all those types of things. Quite often they haven't made their money in real estate. They might have made it through they might have made it through other types of endorsements or because of their business. Real estate. I invest in a lot of different things. Outside of real estate as well. Real estate is a fantastic asset class, but in terms of growing that extreme amount of wealth. I find it very hard to believe that a lot of these influencers have got that wealth through their real estate. They might be parking the money in real estate through the business, but not many of them are that smart that they're actually growing all of their wealth through real estate. And I think that's a really important piece.
So looking at the track record, speak to the existing client who did the repurchase, maybe at least ask 2 or 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Ask for not just testimonials you can read off a website, but I'd like to speak to some of your customers.
Yeah, if you need to pay 15K, it's a hard safe money. Make sure you check through properly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for some young investors who only have maybe less than 100K, say they just have 80 grand in their bank account, would you still recommend them to use a buyer's agent? And where do they start in 2025? It's
a really good one. I think it'll come down to what they're looking for to begin with. Right? The way I would work this out is I'd reverse engineer what their borrowing capacity is, how much deposit they need, including stamp duty, and then whether there's money left over for the buyer's agent. If there is, I would say that it's money well spent. And the reason being is, let's say for argument's sake, the buyer's advocacy fee was $15,000. If my buyer's agent can buy me a property that's under market value of $15,000, it's paid for itself. But more importantly, if they get me into the right market and I can outperform my own personal advice of trying to research and find the property on my own, that's going to put me into a better position in the future much faster. Now, I also understand that if we reverse engineer that and there isn't money left over for a buyer's agent, I would say you still need to do the research, and that's where investing in research and education like property investment courses would be money well spent.
Speaking about property courses, would you like to introduce a little bit about the new courses you guys just launched?
Yeah, sure. So we've started a new investment property course called the Investor's Playbook. It's a bit of a spin-off from our TV show, The Property Playbook. But we've basically got about 60 years of combined experience at hotspotting between Terry Wright and myself and the team. And we believe that there's a real gap in the market for not only expertise on property investment, but also having all of our analytics behind it. So we don't only teach you about how to invest in property, we give you the research so that you can actually put it into action. The other part of that is that we've built a community, so we're actually dialing in with Q&A sessions every 2 weeks. You get one-on-one sessions with Terry and I. So at the end of this course, we really think that you'll have the expertise and confidence to actually go out and do this yourself. And for those who don't, obviously we can also help them with the purchase in the event they just don't have time. But I recommend to people, do a course like this, because even if you want to enlist the services of a buyer's agent, if you've done the course, you're going to know whether or not what they're putting forward is going to be a good investment for you or not.
Yeah, so it's actually a 3 market. People who don't want to pay at all, people who want to pay and get it done for me, and people in the middle. They want to save some money, they want to do the research and learn how to do it themselves, if they have the time as well. I do come across some clients that use buyer's agent. Buyer's agent did very well for the selection, but then they're not very happy. So perhaps those clients, if they do the course themselves, they will distinguish better
Yeah, that's right. As I say, by doing the course, you'll know what to look for with the buyer's agent. We give tips along through that course. We give you, call scripts. We give you all sorts of things. Even checklists on if you're going to go and speak to a buyer's agent, what should you look for? What questions should you ask? And the same with property managers. At every step, what should you be looking for? We have a saying where we say, grow your team before you grow your portfolio.
Yeah.
Right? And it's important to have the right expertise. Good mortgage broker.
And also your mindset as well.
Yeah, mindset as well, absolutely.
I totally agree. So this is a very tough question, Tim. What's the mistake that you made yourself?
It's actually it's not a tough one, it's an easy one. It's really simple. When I grew up in a country town, I made that first fatal mistake that everybody does, which is buying your local area. And I bought, the town I grew up in is called Yea, and it's a town of about, I think it's about 2,000 people now, but it was slightly smaller than that when I bought it, when I lived there. And I bought a block of land there thinking I was going to build on it, and I think I held it for about 6 or 7 years, and it went up about $15,000 in that amount of time. And if you take into account the holding costs of paying a loan throughout that time, I probably lost money. But if I had not invested there and took on the research, and obviously I didn't know about hotspotting or know much about real estate at the time, but if I had had that knowledge at the time, invested in a market that was growing, I'd be a lot further along. A lot quicker.
It's really eye-opening when you read the Hotspot report, the national top 10 buy. If you read it every year and subscribe to the newsletter, you'll find that there's so many new upcoming opportunity where the federal government, state government, or enterprise private monies are investing in, rather than just your backyard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the one you're just familiar with.
Well, there's that, but there's also the fact that markets are cyclical. Not all properties just keep on going like that.
Yeah.
Perth is a great example. We had a lull for about 15 years, and then we've seen about 4 years of really strong growth. Now it's reaching the peak, and it's starting to soften. So whenever it's time, first and foremost, when we put locations into a national top 10, we've got a long-term approach. We're not saying this is going to just double overnight. We're saying long-term, this is going to be a great market. It will go through peaks and troughs, but when the further they are up the list, the more right for investment they are right now. So as I said, in in 2024, 9 out of our top 10 got between 13 and 29% growth.
So Tim, what kind of clients you refuse to work with, even they're willing to pay the fee or more?
Homeowners. I'm strictly investment, and the reason being is, I take a completely different lens when I'm looking at a property for somebody who wants to buy a house to live in, and I prefer to work with someone who's numbers focused. That if the numbers make sense, and I don't buy ugly real estate by any means, but I'm looking at properties with a critical eye and saying, listen, that's an ugly duckling. That's a property that it's not perfect, but there's great opportunity to manufacture growth through cosmetic changes like lighting, blinds, things like that. Not major renovations necessarily, but they're the types of clients that I like to work with because I can manufacture growth. When I'm working with owner-occupiers, they want to touch it, feel it, walk through it, know everything about every nook and cranny of the house, and that's not necessarily the the clients I want to work with because I want to be focused on the growth.
What about the investors? What kind of investors do you refuse to work with? Or you find it so hard to work together?
Oh, look, I don't really have any that I say I can't work with. I suppose, if anything, it'd be people that don't buy into our methodology, and we won't be for everybody. Somebody who wants to buy in a blue chip area, I would say I can help you find that property, but it wouldn't be my recommendation. Some people who want that blue chip are prepared to do that, and they'll give up a lot of cash flow by doing so.
Last question, Tim. And you still have a lot of clients at Buyers Advocacy. I find that they love you. They love your service. So would they see you as the competitors, or would you see them as a competitor because you're selling them your tools?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think what a lot of people don't understand is that investors are such a small amount of the market, and there's a lot of people saying, you go into areas that maybe we've put as number one location in Australia, and buyers agents will certainly go there, and people might think that that's really pushing up the market. I think it is in some areas, some particular types of property that people are going for, but that's because of the budget more than anything. And whether it was us saying go and buy there or not, if people analyse the data, they probably find that they could find that location on their own. I don't think that we're necessarily competing in that space, but for me, quite often I avoid the top 10 because when I'm looking for a client in my buyer's advocacy business, I want to be where others aren't. So whilst I believe in the locations that we're putting forward at hotspotting, I don't necessarily want to be looking at the number one location, because when you're in a hot market, you got to overpay. And I like to go into markets earlier in the cycle and be patient, because I can buy under market value.
I still got another question after the last question. Tim,
That's
sorry.
fine.
If someone got a $2 million budget to buy investment property,
Yeah.
would you recommend him or her to buy one single $2 million investment property, or chop into 2 or 3 in different locations?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, because I'd need to know more about their situation. Have they already got
They just
other
want to earn
assets?
more.
How old are they? All
Yeah.
those types of things. But
Yeah.
as a generalisation, I would want to cut that up.
Yeah.
Right? So I'd probably be looking at 2 or 3 properties for that budget to make sure that we've got enough for. I think the real sweet spot in real estate in today's market right now is between 500 to 800,000. That's where we can get the strongest rental yields, best growth. As soon as we go over that 800 mark, rental yield starts to drop away. So I'd be pretty confident with a customer with a $2 million budget to buy 3 properties, where I'd be getting a neutral gearing on that property, and really strong growth, which will put them far ahead of buying 1 property in 1 market. The diversification, 3 lots of income. Yeah.
Fantastic. And 3 tenants to worry about.
Yeah, that's it. Well, 3 tenants for the property manager to worry about.
There you go. Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you for your time today. And we hope that you guys can learn a lot. And I'll put in Tim's contact at the bottom.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Tom.